The thing about absolute certainty is that it feels exactly the same whether you're right or catastrophically wrong. I know this because I was standing on the bridge of the Eternal Verdict when Grand Admiral Sorek gave the order to drop out of faster-than-light travel, and every single one of us, 12,000 crews across 12,000 warships, felt completely, unshakably certain that we were about to make history. We were right about that part, at least. My name is Tactical Officer Ren Voss, and I served in the Vreth Imperial Navy for 19 years before the day we surrounded Earth. I want to be clear about something before I tell you what happened. We were not stupid people. The Vreth Empire had conquered 43 star systems. We had fought wars that lasted centuries. Our engineers designed weapons that could crack a moon, and our admirals had strategy manuals so detailed and comprehensive that Academy cadets studied them for a decade before being allowed near a real ship. We were, by every reasonable metric, one of the most advanced and capable military forces in the known galaxy. I want you to remember that because what comes next is going to make us look like complete fools, and I'd like at least a little credit for how far we fell before we hit the bottom. The Eternal Verdict was the flagship of the Vreth 7th Armada, and she was beautiful in the way that only truly dangerous things can be beautiful. 3 kilometers long, plated in composite alloy that could absorb a sustained plasma barrage, armed with enough firepower to reduce a city to rubble in under 4 minutes. Grand Admiral Sorek commanded her from a raised platform at the center of the bridge, a deliberate design choice so that every officer who looked up from their station would see him first, a constant reminder of who was in charge and how much confidence they were expected to radiate at all times. Sorek himself was everything an Imperial Grand Admiral was supposed to be. Tall, ridged-browed, with the silver campaign markings of 31 successful conquests etched along his collar. He spoke in the measured cadence of someone who had never, not once in his career, needed to raise his voice to be obeyed. He didn't give orders, he made pronouncements, and the universe arranged itself accordingly. Or so he believed. All fleets confirmed transition complete, announced Commander Yella from the navigation console. She was running the numbers with the focused intensity of someone who had practiced this moment approximately 800 times in simulation. All 12,000 vessels have exited FTL within acceptable variance margins. Formation integrity is holding at 99.7%. Sorek nodded once. The human homeworld? Centered on the tactical display, sir, fully encircled. No vessel in the system has a viable exit vector that doesn't pass through our formation. Another nod. Slower this time. Savoring it. Begin initial sensor sweep. I want a complete defensive profile within the next 15 minutes. I was at my station running secondary tactical analysis when the first scan results came back, and I'll be the first to admit that they confirmed everything I'd expected. The planet below us was beautiful in that soft, watery way that oxygen atmosphere worlds tend to be, blue and white and green, rotating with the peaceful indifference of something that had been doing this for 4 billion years and planned to keep going regardless of what happened today. Around it sat approximately 800 human vessels, and I use the word vessels generously. "Sir," reported Ensign Davra from the sensor station. She was young and eager, the kind of officer who double-checked her readings twice and then reported them with enthusiasm regardless of what they said. Initial scan complete. Human defensive fleet consists of 847 vessels, the largest of which measures approximately 400 meters. For reference, our standard destroyer class runs 900 meters. Their propulsion systems appear to be conventional fusion-based. Weapon signatures indicate kinetic and directed energy armaments, nothing our hull rating can't absorb. Energy shielding detected, but output levels are well below threshold for concern. She paused, and I could hear the slight smile in her voice. "Sir, honestly, I don't think we needed all 12,000 ships." Quiet laughter moved through the bridge like a gentle wave. Even I smiled. Sorek did not smile. Not because he disagreed, but because smiling was for people who were surprised by good news, and nothing about this surprised him. Open a broadband transmission, he said. All human frequencies, maximum output. I want their entire planet to receive this simultaneously. Communications Officer Pell, a thin, precise man who treated every transmission like a delicate surgical procedure, had the channel open in seconds. Transmitting live across all detected human broadcast frequencies, sir. Audio and visual confirmed on both ends. Sorek straightened, set his shoulders, looked directly into the camera with the expression of a man who had rehearsed exactly this moment and found his own performance satisfactory. People of Earth, I am Grand Admiral Sorek, Supreme Commander of the Vreth 7th Armada. You are currently surrounded by 12,000 warships of the Vreth Imperial Fleet, the largest military force to enter this sector in 2 centuries. Your defensive capabilities have been assessed and found wanting. Your fleet is outmatched. Your technology is outclassed. Any resistance you offer will result only in unnecessary casualties on your side. He paused. We are not here to destroy you. The Vreth Empire is not without mercy. We are offering you formal integration into the Empire, protection, stability, order. All we require is your immediate and unconditional surrender. You have 1 standard hour to comply. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. We waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. The bridge maintained its confident atmosphere, but I noticed things. Small things. The kind of things that you only notice when you've been doing this long enough to know what normal looks like. The human ships weren't scrambling. They weren't forming defensive clusters or broadcasting emergency signals or doing any of the 100 things a fleet does when it realizes it is massively, catastrophically outgunned. They were just maintaining their patrol routes, calm, methodical, unhurried. Like 12,000 hostile warships in their home system was a minor inconvenience rather than an existential crisis. Unusual internal communication traffic from the planet's surface, Java reported, her voice carrying a slightly different tone now, less enthusiasm, more uncertainty. Their communication volume has increased by roughly 300%, but it's not distress signals or emergency broadcasts. It reads more like logistical coordination, supply chain activity, military traffic that sounds organizational rather than reactive. They're in shock, said Second Commander Braille, who was the kind of officer who always had a confident explanation ready regardless of what the situation actually called for. Primitive governments often require extended internal deliberation before they can respond to overwhelming force. They're probably arguing about whether surrender is even an option. Possibly, said Chief Strategist Moran from the far end of the bridge. He was older than Braille, quieter, with the habit of watching everything twice before commenting on anything. I had worked with him for 6 years, and I trusted his instincts more than anyone else on this ship. He did not sound convinced. Or they're doing something else entirely. Such as? Sorek asked. Moran looked at his console for a long moment. Sir, I'm detecting power fluctuations across the planet's surface, multiple locations. Our initial scan identified 38 military-grade installations on Earth. I am currently reading 280 distinct power signatures consistent with military-grade facilities. He looked up. Either our initial scan was wrong, or those installations were deliberately offline when we arrived and have since powered up. The comfortable atmosphere on the bridge shifted, just slightly, like a temperature drop you couldn't quite measure but could absolutely feel. Run full diagnostics on our sensor array, Sorek ordered, his voice unchanged. Already done, sir. Equipment is fully functional. Moran's eyes stayed on his display. There's something else. They're orbital platforms, the ones we flagged as basic defensive satellites. They're outputting energy signatures that are, sir, significantly higher than our initial readings suggested. I'm talking about an order of magnitude higher. Before anyone could respond to that, Pell spoke from the communications station. Sir, incoming transmission from Earth, military command frequency, audio and visual. For the first time since we'd arrived, something flickered across Sorik's face that wasn't confidence. It wasn't fear either. It was the particular expression of a man who has just heard an unexpected sound in the dark and hasn't decided yet whether to be concerned. On screen, the view screen lit up. The man looking back at us was not what I expected. He was perhaps 55, heavy-set, with close-cropped gray hair and a face so expressionless it had clearly required years of deliberate practice to achieve. He wore a uniform I didn't recognize, dark, functional, decorated with a modest collection of insignia that somehow conveyed more authority than Sorik's entire medal collection. Behind him was a command center full of officers who were conspicuously not panicking, moving through their duties with the calm efficiency of people who were dealing with a situation they had, apparently, already accounted for. He looked at Sorik the way a contractor looks at a homeowner who has just pointed out that the front door is the wrong color. "Grand Admiral Sorik," he said, "I'm General Marcus Webb, Earth Defense Coalition. Sorry for the delay, we were finishing up a briefing. I'll be brief because I think we can resolve this without too much drama." He glanced down at something off-screen, then back up. "Your intelligence report on Earth's defensive capabilities. How old is it?" Sorik's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Our information is current." "Humor me with a date, Admiral." There is a specific kind of silence that settles over a military bridge when the people on it begin to understand, collectively and simultaneously, that they are in serious trouble. It's not the silence of panic. Panic is loud. It's the silence of very disciplined, very trained professionals who are rapidly recalculating everything they thought they knew and arriving, one by one, at conclusions they would prefer not to share out loud. That silence fell over the eternal verdict the moment Chief Strategist Moran pulled up the classified intelligence file and said, in a voice stripped of all inflection, "Sir, our most recent comprehensive assessment of Earth's military capabilities is dated 5.2 standard years ago." General Webb, still on the view screen, nodded slowly. 5 years, he repeated. "That explains quite a lot, actually." "Our intelligence gathering protocols are thorough," Sorik said. His voice was still controlled, but there was something careful about it now, the way a man speaks when he is choosing each word deliberately rather than letting confidence carry him. "Long-range surveillance has maintained continuous observation." "Long-range, yes." Webb folded his hands on the console in front of him. "Tell me something, Admiral. In the past 5 years, how many new ship classes has the Vreth Empire designed, built, tested, and deployed to active service?" A pause. Sorik glanced at Moran. "2, Moran said quietly. "The updated Dominance-class carrier and the Reaver tactical destroyer, both based on existing hull frameworks." Webb nodded again. "Right. And in that same 5 years, humanity has developed and deployed 11 new vessel classes, 3 of which don't exist in any intelligence database your surveillance would have had access to, because we built them in facilities your sensors were never designed to detect." He said it without pride, without gloating, with the flat, factual delivery of someone reading a weather report. "The 47 minutes you gave us for deliberation, Admiral, that was actually quite helpful. We used about 3 minutes of it deciding how to respond to you. We used the remaining 44 minutes completing a deployment that we'd had prepared and waiting for approximately 2 years." On Moran's console, every alarm that could light up was lighting up. "Sir," Davra said, and her voice had lost every trace of its earlier enthusiasm, replaced by the specific tone of an officer who has just seen something that she needs to report accurately, no matter how much she would prefer not to. I'm detecting mass decloaking events, multiple vectors, originating from the asteroid belt, from behind the gas giant, Sir, they're coming from everywhere. I'm counting. I can't get an accurate count, the signatures are overlapping, but, sir, there are a lot of them." "How many?" Sorik said. "Sir, preliminary estimate, over 30,000 vessels." The silence that followed was absolute. Webb watched it from the view screen with the patience of a man who had seen this exact expression on someone's face before, in training simulations and strategy sessions, and the long, quiet hours of planning for a moment that had now arrived more or less exactly as anticipated. "The cloaking technology is ours," he said, "developed about 3 years ago. It works by, well, the technical explanation isn't really relevant right now. What's relevant is that your fleet has been surrounded since approximately 4 minutes after you arrived. The reason your ships haven't been able to detect them is the same reason your initial survey missed 242 of our ground installations. We've been building this capability specifically because we knew, eventually, someone was going to show up with overwhelming force and expect us to be impressed." "You prepared for us specifically?" Sorek asked. "Not you specifically, the concept of you." Webb's expression remained neutral. "Grand Admiral, the Vreth Empire is the 4th major power to send a fleet to this system in the past 20 years, demanding that we accept subjugation. The first 3 came with smaller forces and left with a clearer understanding of why that approach doesn't work on us. You came with 12,000 ships, which is honestly flattering, and we respect the commitment to the aesthetic. But the size of the fleet doesn't change the fundamental problem, which is that you're now inside our engagement envelope, and you've been inside it since the moment you dropped out of FTL." Moran was running calculations with the focused desperation of a man trying to find a number that would make the situation look better. He wasn't finding it. "Sir," he said, "I need to brief you on the quantum anchor deployment." Sorek looked at him. "While we were waiting for their response, they appear to have deployed—" "Sir, there are anchor nodes threaded through our formation, micro-scale, essentially undetectable on standard sensor settings. If they're activated, our ships can't jump to FTL. Sir, we are effectively fixed in place." "Effectively?" Sorek said. "Completely," Moran corrected quietly. "I'm sorry, sir. Completely fixed in place." Webb had heard none of this, but he didn't need to. He simply waited, giving Sorek the time to absorb what his own officers were telling him, because a general who has just explained that the enemy is surrounded and outgunned does not need to pile on. He just needs to give the facts room to breathe. When Sorek finally looked back at the view screen, something had changed in his face. Not broken, the man had too much discipline for that, but recalibrated. Honest in a way that command authority usually doesn't allow. "You're saying we're trapped," he said. "I'm saying you're contained. There's a difference. Trapped implies we intend to keep you here. We don't. I want to be very clear about that, Admiral, because the last thing I want is for 12,000 warships full of trained military personnel to conclude that they have nothing to lose. You have a great deal to lose. You also have a perfectly viable path home, and I'd very much like you to take it." "You're offering us safe passage?" "I'm offering you safe passage, yes, under specific conditions." Webb pulled up something on a screen beside him. "Your fleet will power down all weapon systems and maintain current formation. You'll remain in position for approximately 6 hours while we verify compliance. After verification, we will deactivate the anchor network in sections, fleet by fleet, and provide navigational corridors that will take you out of the system safely. Your ships will not be damaged. Your crews will not be harmed. You will return to Vreth space exactly as you arrived, except with 12,000 fewer ships than you'd planned to leave with." Sorek's eyes narrowed. "Fewer ships?" "We'll be keeping the flagship, not as a trophy, as a message." Webb's voice carried something then. Not cruelty, but a kind of deep, tired finality. "Every time an empire sends a fleet to demand our surrender, we keep the flagship. We don't destroy it. We don't harm the crew. We simply keep it in orbit, powered down, as a reminder to the next fleet that comes that someone was here before them, made the same assumptions, and discovered the same thing." He looked directly at Sorek. "Right now, we have 3 flagships in permanent orbit. Yours will be the 4th. The crew is free to leave on another vessel. You personally, Admiral, are also free to leave. I want you to go home and tell your government what you found here, because the message we're trying to send is not that Earth is dangerous. The message is that this approach doesn't work. It has never worked, and we would very much like it to stop." I watched Sorek process this. I had served under him for 4 years, and I had seen him win battles that should have been impossible. I had seen him make decisions in the space of 3 seconds that took lesser officers 3 hours to arrive at. He was not a foolish man, and he was not a coward. What he was, in this moment, was a supremely capable military commander who had walked into a situation that his capability had not been designed to handle, and he was processing that with the particular honesty that only becomes possible when all other options have been exhausted. "You could destroy us," Sorek said, not a question. "Yes, but you won't." "No, destroying you accomplishes nothing except making the next fleet that comes here angrier than the last one." Webb leaned back slightly. "Admiral, we've been watching the galactic community for a long time. We understand how empires think. We understand the logic of overwhelming force and the message it's supposed to send. We're not interested in playing that game. We're interested in ending it." He paused. "Your 12,000 ships arrive expecting surrender. They go home intact and unharmed, minus one flagship. The story that spreads through the Empire is not humans are powerful. That's not a message that changes behavior. The story that spreads is humans let us go. That's the confusing one. That's the one people argue about in strategy meetings for years. That's the one that makes the next admiral pause before loading 12,000 ships and heading for a blue planet at the edge of the sector." Sorek was quiet for a long time, longer than I'd ever seen him quiet about anything. "You've done this before," he finally said. "4 times now, counting today. Every time the fleet goes home. Every time we keep the flagship. Every time the story gets a little more complicated for the next empire that's thinking about making the same trip." Webb allowed himself, for just a moment, something that might have been the edge of a smile. "You're not our enemies, Admiral. You're our demonstration. There's a difference." In the end, the eternal verdict powered down her weapons in sections, fleet by fleet, 12,000 warships going quiet in the space of an hour, like a bonfire that someone had decided to let burn out rather than extinguish. The crew was transferred to neighboring vessels. Sorek himself walked off the ship under his own power, spine straight, chin level, with the bearing of a man who had been defeated cleanly and was choosing to carry it with dignity. The deactivation of the anchor network was precisely sequenced, exactly as Webb had promised. The navigational corridors held. Not a single Vreth ship was damaged. Not a single crew member was harmed. The armada that had arrived to demonstrate why the Vreth Empire had never lost a conquest departed in good order, and the eternal verdict took her place in permanent orbit alongside 3 other silent flagships, their hallmarkings representing 3 other empires that had come to the same place with the same certainty and found the same answer. I have thought about that day many times in the years since. I have thought about what we assumed and what we failed to check, and how the gap between those 2 things had been precisely large enough for humanity to park 30,000 warships inside. I have thought about the 44 minutes they spent while we waited for their fear to surface, and what was actually happening in those minutes, and how different the outcome would have been if Sorek had given them 20 minutes instead of 60. Mostly, though, I think about General Webb's face, about the absence of triumph on it, about the way he offered safe passage the same way a reasonable person offers a stranger directions, helpfully, clearly, without expectation of gratitude, about what it means to build the most sophisticated defensive network in a sector of space and then use it every single time to let people go home. The galaxy thought Earth was surrounded. What none of us understood until we were already inside the trap that was never really a trap was that surrounding Earth had never been the difficult part. The difficult part was leaving. And humanity, every single time, made it easy.